Melissa, you should be good to report now.
Good to see you, Dick.
Oh, thank you very much. Glad to finally make one.
Okay, so we will officially call to order now at 9:33, the MCC meeting. And I'm going to go ahead and lump the agenda and the approval of minutes together. Did everybody have a chance to review them? So we will need a motion to approve the agenda and minutes.
So motion.
Thank you, Dick. A second?
Kristen Amundsen, second.
Thank you, Kristen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, fantastic. Next, we have any public comments that are not on the agenda. Does anybody have any public comments, or Melissa, were any sent to you?
I did not receive any.
Okay. And we have no new membership appointments this meeting. And let me see. So Joe was going to present about being a citizen at large on this committee, since he is amazing and the only one that's not obligated through their work, although we all love being on this committee. Joe, why don't you go ahead and start? Just so you know, Joe, we can't hear you if you can hear me.
So Joe and I troubleshooted his Zoom last time, and he was hoping that it was going to be up and running. But he also was able to dial in with his phone. So we may have to give him a few more seconds to circle back and see if he might have to dial in on his phone instead. So let's see what happens. And I'll keep my email open too, in case Joe wants to email me and let me know what's happening.
Okay, we could turn it over to Laura while Joe gets settled, and Laura can give all of her updates while Joe's working out the technology.
Yes, good morning. Actually, I have a few things, and we'll probably talk about it after Joe is able to present. I had sent out last MCC, and actually, I think the MCC before that, access to a Google Sheet that has the capability for you guys to put in information about your organizations, about your capacity, and just to contact information and kind of getting some updates from all of the providers on what you're doing, what your current capacity is during COVID, what it will be whenever some of these restrictions are lifted. And the idea about getting that information is A, so we can all share that information with each other and know what each other are doing, but B, being able to update things like the yellow book that goes out. And to give you guys an update on the yellow book, we won't be reprinting the yellow books for this year. I think that's right, Jody. We will be continuing to update the website that has the yellow book information on it. Jody's saying yes. We're not reprinting those because there hasn't been a lot of changes to the information in those yellow books. We still have so many of those at our office to hand out that we weren't able to hand out during COVID through our usual channels. So, but we do want to update that information. Also, the board, the PPACG board, has really been looking for the past few years a mobility guide, not just for specialized transportation, but just how to get around in our area for the general population and for people who may need added assistance. And so this is a start of getting that information compiled. And so a little bit later, I want to show you guys that spreadsheet again. I want to spend some time too with you just to kind of fill in some holes, because there's not a lot of information that's in there right now. So we do have, as an MCC, kind of a role of trying to get this information compiled and out to the public for their viewing. Couple of updates on funding wise. And I see Glenn is on the call today. We have a fully executed CDOT contract. CDOT had worked with the state to set aside some funds for the urbanized areas and certain providers within the urbanized areas that provides specialized transportation, and set aside funding. And we have been working with them since, I believe, September or October last year to distribute those funds. And so those funds, we have a fully executed contract as of this morning. And so we're going to be working really diligently to work with those recipients of those funds to get the contracts out to you guys this week so that you can start making your purchases, and also getting, for those that have operational expenses that you're covering with that, getting some of your proof of those operational expenses so that we can start dispensing funds to you guys. So that's a great news. Another news on the funding front, we have this week our 5310 applications or proposals are due in the system. And so I can see that a lot of people on this call have been working on theirs. And so I have fixed the issue within, I think, all the issues within the system. So thank you guys for your input and helping me out through that process. But those are due. We do have a committee of RAC members and some transportation specialists who are going to be reviewing those proposals, and then we will make recommendations to the TAC on May 20th, and then it'll continue through the committee process for us to be able to make those recommendations to the board. So thank you guys for y'all's input on that. Along new development, those of you who know about some of the stimulus funding that has come through for specialized transportation, we actually have two funds that have come through. We have the CRISA funding, which is FTA funding, it's COVID relief funding that came through in late January, early February. Our apportionment was around $85,000. We most recently were apportioned another $85,000 for through the American Rescue Fund. And so those two funds, we've been working with FTA on how to distribute within the regulations of those funds. They are to be used primarily for operations and salaries and those types of things that keep transit programs going. And so in working with Kristen with FTA on Friday, we have been able to, instead of having to do a whole new call for projects, we will be able to make some adjustments to our program management plan so that we can start allocating those funds to 5310 recipients. And so instead of having to go through that whole process, we're going to be able to utilize our current RFP process to basically lump those funds with our current 5310 apportionment and be able to distribute that all at one time. So that's really going to be helpful, I think, both for providers as well as us in trying to administer those things. It's also going to help us kind of utilize some of those funds to close some of these funding gaps that we've assessed over the past few months. So the added 170K coming through the system is going to help us with some of those funding gaps for the program in general. So if y'all have any questions about that, just feel free to reach out to me of how that's going to work. Like I said, we just kind of were able to sort of put the structure around it with FTA on Friday. There's more to-dos. I will be going to the TAC also in May to make the recommendations to the changes of the program management plan. And those recommendations will be given to you guys to review as well. Really, it is going to be just a few sentences in there allowing us to allocate funds to 5310 recipients when it is funding like coronavirus relief funding and things like that. So any questions on that, let me know. Joe, were you able to call in?
Well,
So-
he's back on, but still no sound. So maybe I can convince Joe to type some things up for us, and we'll
Or-
have to.
Or Melissa, I would be more than happy to host Joe at the senior center next month, where maybe he logs in with me. And Joe, I'm fully vaccinated, so you could be like in my airspace. And that way we could just have him on. And because I do think what we hear from Joe is going to be really interesting and unique. So Joe, if you want to come to the senior center, or I can come to you if you have Wi-Fi, whichever you want. Melissa, if you could just connect us via email, and I can work with Joe on getting him on next month. So Laura, it's still your show.
Okay. Melissa, can you give me permission?
Should be okay.
Okay. All right, let me get this logged in here. Okay. All right. Can y'all see my lovely spreadsheet? Okay, cool. So, I had asked you guys, I think a couple of MCCs ago, to look at this spreadsheet, start filling out your information on your organization. And I need help because really right now we have five agencies who have actually filled this out. And so this is super important for us just to know what each other does, but also be able to communicate that to the public. And so as y'all are looking at this right now, help me at least fill in some of the names of organization holes that you may see, and just jump in and unmute yourself if you know of anything. So help me fill out some of these holes so that I can either go and contact that organization for this information, or we split some of this up as an MCC and we try to get that information. So I know that we have more than 5 providers in our 3-county service area that provides transportation. So
You're going to have Teller County Senior Services,
Yeah.
and Teller County also has paratransit. Oh, and Diane from Teller County just put the phone number for you in the chat.
Okay.
And I think Teller County, yeah, has something themselves.
Okay. chat real quick. And Diane, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna resend you the link to this sheet so that you can fill out more of the information on you guys.
Okay, and Laura, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I don't know how I must have missed this meeting and I apologize. Definitely send it to me and I can fill it out very quickly and send it right back.
okay, awesome.
Perfect. That would be awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
And hey, Laura, it's John, Special
Okay.
Kids, Special Families, and I never received the link. You mentioned it at the last meeting,
Okay.
and my understanding is you were going to send it out for us to fill in. And
Give me just a second, John. I have been trying to compile an MCC email list so that I can make an MCC group. And I know that there may be some people that I might have missed on that list. So let me see if I can bring up that list.
now
Laura, I can
we're-
follow, I can forward you the email list from, who we invite to this meeting. So
I think that's what I built this off of. So
I wonder why John is missing.
Yeah. Edit group.
Community intersection is missing also, and I don't remember receiving that email either. But Laura, I sent you my contact information, the phone number and the organization via chat to you.
Okay. Well, and one of the things that I want to caution you guys on, because this happened earlier, when I created the MCC Outlook group, it sends you an email that may go to your junk mailbox that you have to opt into the group. So that might have been the situation that happened. So what I'll do is I'll make for sure that I'll resend it to you guys after this meeting, and look in your junk email box if you do not see that, because you'll have to opt into the group. It's just an easier way for us to communicate with each other, because we can just email MCC on your email and be able to communicate with everybody. So I apologize if we're missing some people on here.
And then we'll also want to hear from Jacob on paratransit for this list.
Okay.
Yep, and I can probably give that information right now. And also, I never received an email. I just checked all my folders and it's nowhere. So I don't think any of us got it.
Okay, I'm failing.
No,
I
you're not.
apologize.
You're fine. Do you want me to answer the questions right now, or do we just want to email communicate this later?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this and I'm just going to put the names in here.
Okay.
So we'll do Mountain Metro. And I think we need Mountain Metro, the regular Mountain Metro information, and then we need Metro Mobility. Because like I said,
Yep,
this isn't just for specialized transit.
Laura, I would go even further than that too and have Metro do their ride share, their commuter information online. Yeah, and maybe your busting stuff, just because Laura's trying to gather all transportation information, and you guys have so many other, you guys have a lot of services that I don't think everybody realizes necessarily, Jacob.
So 100% agree on the van pool. I like to put that in there. Busing is actually ran by the state, not by us.
Oh, okay. But you guys do a stop to them, right?
It's our downtown terminal to stop there, but we're not affiliated with them.
Oh, okay.
That's CDOT. Okay.
And
But I think
Vita,
it's good to have it in there because busting's a way to get out of the city.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you put it that way.
and,
All right.
and Vita is spelled wrong. Just
I
FYI.
know. didn't put that in there. Okay. Somebody else is typing in here. Okay, I like it. That's the other thing. If y'all haven't worked in Google Sheets before, you can be typing in there at the same time as other people. So it's pretty cool. I am not doing anything. Somebody else is typing in right now.
I'm gonna guess
I'm
that's
being your
Phil.
scribe.
Yeah.
What are some of our for-profit entities that provide transportation?
Oh, Phil, what's the name of the guy that owns a Solange down in Fountain? He has a private transportation.
I just thought of Coach. I put Coach on there.
Oh, that's who he owns
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
Yeah, Coach.
Christelle.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we might as well just put IntelliRide, right?
Okay.
Because that basically encompasses probably.
And Laura, I also just realized we have nobody on MCC that really represents Park County, I don't think. So maybe me and you can get together to reach out to some Park County people because they do have transportation up there.
Okay. I'm just gonna put Park County
Yeah,
question mark.
yeah.
Jolene, what do you think they have up there? Because the only thing I know is Invita does very little. They started to try to run some services up there, but what else do you see up
Does
there?
their senior center do anything?
I don't think
anymore.
so.
No, I don't think there's anything up there. We do Medicaid and EMT, friends and family reimbursements.
Yeah.
That's about it.
And then the Park County Senior Coalition, they actually do vouchers for individuals to pay somebody else to drive them places.
Yeah.
But it's not the most, efficient and best way to do
No.
things. And so Invita, was exploring, getting up there to help out. But it's a huge need and gap up there. So I was just curious if you would have been hearing some other things.
No. Jody also said Mountain Community Senior Services. Thank you, Jody. We really hope you're doing okay.
MCSS doesn't do transit anymore. We took over the volunteer program, or we're managing it now. I mean, we could put monument volunteers up there.
Just a quick comment. There are things going on in Park County, but that's not my jurisdiction. I can get a hold of Molly Tompkins, who is the coordinator for that area, and give you an update.
That would be great. I also think the important thing on this spreadsheet, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, is we can name people on here, and even if they're not currently doing transportation, it will help us highlight where there are holes and gaps, and maybe where some of us could step in, or where PPACG needs to reach out to help support the more rural communities as well.
Yeah, so that's why in here we have service area. I know that's kind of broad, what these service areas are, but the idea is for us to utilize this information to understand where our gaps are. So further down the road, I want to really drill this down and work with our GIS team to be able to visually show those gaps in our area, so that not only can we start tackling that through our current constructs, but also work on finding funding to fill in those gaps as well. I'm highlighting where we may have a gap in information right now. I know that also up in Cripple Creek, we have the casinos provide transportation. All right. Well, we have made a good dent in this list. The biggest thing that what would help me after this meeting is if you guys have contacts for within some of these. I mean, obviously we have contacts within special kids, special families, so that's pretty simple. I also just added several of you guys to the list, so check your inboxes and see if you got a request. It may take a minute or so because it's adding new members right now. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for helping me out with this. Feel free to go back in, like I said, include some contact information. I'm going to put a column in here. Actually, we can utilize these columns here. If you guys know the transit manager and maybe an email address for some of these that we don't have information on, feel free to fill that in for me so that I can contact them with that to get that information. I think one other aspect that we didn't kind of touch on is really the sort of the ambulance transportation. Would be another one that I think we need to kind of hone down on. So, all right. Well, that's all I have on that. There's still work to do. To kind of give you an idea of the timeline that we're looking at, because it is something that we discussed as a initiative for the AAA just as a whole, but also something that the board is looking for just as a result out of our mobility coordinating committee, is that we try to have a draft of sort of an outward facing guide for the community by the end of next quarter. So that would be, I'm not talking about this quarter, but next quarter, which would end in October. So we have time to work through this. I want to get the information compiled, then work with our communications people to kind of put together and get input from you guys too on the best way to format this for the community.
Okay.
And please let me know if you guys are not getting MCC emails. I think I added quite a few here. And Phil put into the chat. Can y'all see this on my screen? The Colorado Transit Directory. Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is good to know, Phil. This is also something that we may want to work with CASTA to update too, if there's something on here that is old or we need to add people to. So if we can get all of these lists kind of cleaned up, I know that 211 also has a list on their website of transportation opportunities. We want to make for sure that that has the right information on it, as well as a compiled group of information that may not be on there. So, yeah. Cool.
Yep.
All right. That's all I have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura. Before we adjourn, I just want to remind everyone our next meeting will be May 25th, but the week prior to that is the CASTA conference, and I'm hoping to see a lot of you up in Estes, of course, for the fabulous information, but as well as getting out of our houses during the pandemic and, being in a room full of people. I don't think I've ever been so excited to go to a conference on transportation. It got upgraded greatly. So I know Laura, myself, Phil, and Erica will be there and presenting some. So please make sure to find us and say hi and let the Springs Peep, represent up there. There are still scholarships available. So if anybody wants to go and doesn't have the funding to go, there are scholarships for up to 50% of the cost. So if you need help with that, feel free to reach out to me and I'll get you connected. But otherwise, enjoy this.
Jolene?
Yes.
Hey, before we all disperse, I do have a question for Laura and maybe Invita. So looking at the vaccine shuttle service and what's going on with that, Laura, or perhaps Phil, if you're still on the line, or whomever may be doing this, are you all still providing transportation to vaccine clinics for people that are not necessarily in your client database?
Yes, I'll just answer that, Jacob. Silver Key and
Cool.
Vita in Fountain Valley are doing the vaccine hotline. And that's for anyone that calls in that qualifies. So anyone over 60 and disabled, it doesn't matter if they've ever ridden with us or not. We're all providing vaccine transportation.
So, but you're not doing it for the general public, correct?
I don't know that we would say no. We haven't gotten the calls. We would likely still take them.
Jacob, and Phil can speak to this too. Phil, do you want to jump in and talk about just general public? Because that was a discussion we had early on. And while some of the other providers can't within their constructs of their organization, Invita had secured funding to help out with general population, all ages, transportation if needed.
Bill said he had to run to another meeting.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll speak for him. Yes, so Invita has actually, and this is working with Gail as well, knowing that as we were moving through the phases, we were going to move more into the different age groups, the younger age groups, and trying to figure out transportation options there. Phil and Invita had secured some funding through FTA for actually transportation assistance to testing sites. And so being able to kind of flip some of that funding to taking people to vaccination sites. So that is still available for the general population should somebody need added assistance. One thing though that I talked to not Craig about this past week. I'm trying to think who I was talking to at
Brian might have reached out earlier in the week.
Okay, yeah. So I was talking to him about how some of the other like RTD and Pueblo Transit are doing shuttles to these mass vaccination sites. I'm not for sure how they're coordinating that, but I asked kind of the question of, is that something that may be on the horizon for you guys? Especially as some of these mass vaccination sites are starting to kind of change their rules around having to have pre-signups and that kind of thing. So just, Jacob, do you have any idea of whether that may be something that Mountain Metro may be participating in the future?
Yeah, that's precisely what we're looking at right now, wondering if we want to do something like that. But obviously we don't want to duplicate what's currently being done because that would just be throwing money out the window. So just wondering what other people were doing and what other options are out there. And we're not even certain what this looks like for demand. That'd be my next question is, of those that are doing it, what's been the demand? I know maybe it was maybe 2-3 months ago, which is it's going back quite a ways now because that was before there was the mass distribution of vaccines. But I believe that in Vita, we had Dave Summers with us, and he, in some meeting, has stated that they weren't getting any calls at all, or like one a week or something like those. Are really low numbers. Wondering if that rebounded at some point.
I'll find out from Phil. That hasn't quite been the communication to me. Phil actually sent me numbers the other day on the number of vaccination transportation rides that had been given between all of the providers. Let me pull that up real quick.
It's over
Yeah, that'd be
400.
great.
It's over 400 right now, Jacob. And
Okay.
the first couple months we didn't have specific vaccine funding, so we didn't earmark them as vaccine rides at first, and now we are tagging them as vaccine rides, so they're better to track. And I live in Pueblo, so like mass transit down here is doing more vaccine shuttles. I would say the specialized transit providers are doing more the one-offs. So if you guys do a vaccine shuttle, I don't think it will be duplication. I think it will be a completely different passenger base that would be reaching out to you in comparison to reaching out to us. But our biggest problem too is like the health department reached out to all of us and wanted to do vaccine shuttles. But I think the health department doesn't understand we're under CDOT regs that are still at like half capacity for buses. So they weren't understanding why, like previous, when we could only have 2 people on buses, why we couldn't just load up, 15 seniors on a vehicle and drive them down. So there's a disconnect between local and state regs still.
Okay.
Yeah, Jacob.
Yeah, the difficulty we're working, I don't know if it's a difficulty, it's just a head scratcher for me, is we're looking at potentially the Broadmoor World Arena, and the difficulty there is they're not doing walk-ups, to which I say, well, solve that problem, allow walk-ups, versus because they're getting on the buses to do it. So therein lies I guess the quandary. It's like, well, if you allowed walk-ups, we're set. We already have a bus that literally drops there at the entrance to the Broadmoor World Arena. So the difficulty is they want to come on the bus, and so on a certain level, it almost feels like a solution looking for a problem. But I don't know. That's just my personal frustration that, when you have other organizations that their rules stop them from getting everybody service, so they want you to work around their rules. That's the frustration, and we see that often.
Yeah, Jacob, why don't you and I connect and try to connect with some of our folks that are working that Broadmoor Arena site, just to kind of talk through some of these things of how we may be able to work with them a little bit easier.
Well, Craig is already doing that. I'm on the operational end, trying to find an operational way. He has that contact.
Okay. One of the things that came to mind for me specifically when we're talking about shuttling to mass vaccination sites is if some of these organizations or companies, not necessarily organizations, but companies are being sort of targeting their employees to get vaccinated, almost like doing a blood drive type situation, but targeting those employees to get vaccinated, being able to utilize a shuttle service to kind of transport their employees to Broadmoor Arena for those mass vaccination sites, that those appointments have already been made kind of in a cluster. So that's an opportunity for us to kind of do that type of transportation work. If they're going to continue to require an appointment, I know that is starting to change in some other counties. So appointments are kind of going away in some other counties. And I think that El Paso County is going to have to make some of those changes as well, because they've had multiple days where their slots aren't filled up by the thousands. So I think that that's something that maybe as you're talking in those committee meetings, making the suggestion of, if we're targeting specific businesses that have several employees and wanting to get them to sites, that Mountain Metro may have the capability of helping out with that transportation. So that's just an opportunity that I was thinking about.
So I would like to touch base on 2 things though too about shuttles to vaccination sites. One, we all have to keep in mind, it does put whoever the driver is at risk, because the more people on the vehicle that are not vaccinated, and I think our drivers have really, not in this particular group, but statewide, public transit drivers have not really been considered like high risk during the pandemic. And our drivers breathe the same airspace more than any other population does right now. Everybody else, leaves the room 15 minutes after being with someone, and our drivers don't. And so I hope our drivers are getting vaccinated. But two, one thing that came up in Pueblo is like our mass vaccination site was first ran by the county, then Centura, and now FEMA. So every time you get plans in place, it changes. And so it's super frustrating for the participants down here. But you know, when like Centura is running it, they are a nonprofit in theory. They are a nonprofit, but they're making a ton of money from these vaccination sites because they do get administrative fees for every vaccine administered. And I don't think it should fall on transportation or like Mountain Metro to have to fund this. I think they should be footing some of these transportation costs because they are being paid for this. And so I just don't want to see all the resources get shifted where Mountain Metro get like, you know, Jacob, I'd hate for you guys to have to hold the bag on this if you weren't funded for it.
We've found potential funding sources.
Okay, good.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Actually the funding is not the biggest issue right now. Is finding if it's contractually we're able to do it. That's the investigation right now.
Oh.
So
Jacob, you guys should just tow one of your vehicles that doesn't work down there. Then the people that get off the bus could enter your broken vehicle as their vehicle to get their shot. Then it wouldn't be
actually, it's funny. Not too far off from that, I go, just send me in a vehicle because it's taking more of my time to figure this out than if I just took it myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's been one of my ongoing jokes with this whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's, as you're aware, we deal with a lot of restrictions on what we can and can't do. And one of those things is charter service. So we have to be careful in how we put this out there as a service because we can't just offer it to a certain group of people. So yeah, we have to make it open to the public, but the shots are by appointment only. So it's all sorts of fun like that. But yeah.
And then the only other thing I had to add is just anything you guys can do to increase safety on your bus lots. Just so you guys are aware, Silver Key had 8 catalytic converters stolen. I recently had 2 stolen, and both of us were on the news, and the cops are in our lots a lot, which means they'll be looking for new catalytic converters. So anyone with the more high profile vehicles, that's what they're going after, because it's easy to crawl underneath and cut it off. And if you've never had one stolen, the way you know it was stolen is when your driver starts the bus and it is obnoxiously loud. Your catalytic converter was stolen. So you guys also might want to check with your insurance companies. It's approximately $4,000 to $6,000 to replace one. But if you get the coverage on your insurance, then you only have to pay your deductible. So I highly encourage investing in theft of your like vehicle parts insurance.
Hey, Jolene, if I could jump in here for a moment.
Yeah.
Hey, we had the same thing. We've had 6 stolen, and I've gone to Bud Mufflers and we put rebarb cages around our catalytic converters at a cost of about $200 each. So they take, about a half a day to put them on.
Yeah.
And you got to work it in. So if anybody wants, they can look up Bud Mufflers online or contact me, and I'll send them on over there to them. But we took about a week, maybe 7 working days to get all our catalytic converters protected with the rebarb cage.
I really like that idea.
That is a great idea.
Can you send out an email to the whole, like to the agenda list, or Melissa?
Yeah, matter of fact, somebody sent me that shared link, and maybe I'll try it the first time and see what kind of mistakes I make with that. So if you don't hear anything within 24 hours, let me know. I'll send it on out.
Yeah, because the worst part too is right now with them hitting so many people, the catalytic converters are on back order, and it's like you're waiting forever with your bus out of service.
Yeah, last I heard from Buzz Muffler, $1,500, 60 days waiting, and you can't drive them with a straight pipe.
No. Yeah.
A catalytic converter has to go on there.
Yes. Thanks, Dick. That is such a great idea.
I'm glad I can contribute.
Does anybody else have anything? I just want to say thank you to Laura again for the her first time doing the 5310 RFP. She's done a great job with it. Especially I mean, we have to give Laura credit, a lot of credit. Not only is she dealing with a federal RFP, but she's using the state Oasis platform to then send out a federal RFP, which is like mixing oil and water together. And so huge shout out to you, Laura, on doing that, because combining two government systems and rules together, you're just a glutton for punishment. So thank you. And she's done a great job recruiting people to review those RFPs, because there's not usually a long line of people that want to review them, which to me, giving people money that's not your money is like the best part of doing RFPs. So you'd think it'd be easier, but I've heard her on multiple meeting platforms asking. So just thank you for being a support to our community, Laura, and combining government systems. Like, good luck with that.
I have plugged Glenn with CDOT to help us out with our first reviews.
Great.
So I'm really excited that he's going to be able to kind of give us some seasoned knowledge on being able to look at these types of proposals. So I appreciate everybody's, and I just kind of speak for Glenn a little bit on this call to you. I think those of us who are having these funding opportunities come at us from the federal level really seems like thrown up on us at one time. It's been a lot to deal with. And I know that CDOT's had some changes in personnel and stuff, and I'm new, and we're trying to sort through these types of things as they're coming at us kind of at a fire hose pace. And then we're trying to get it to you guys at a fire hose pace. So I appreciate everybody kind of giving everyone grace throughout this kind of transition time, especially as new administration comes through. I'm sure we're going to have, even with the new infrastructure bill that may be approved, some more things thrown at us at that point. So while we love funding, it comes with work. And so I know it's not just work on us, but it's also work on you guys. And so I just appreciate everybody's patience.
Thank you so much, Laura. Does anybody else have anything? Then we will adjourn at 10.
1 second. I just sent the email us. If you don't get it in the next couple of minutes, give me a holler.
Okay, thank you, Dick.
You're welcome.
And we will adjourn and see everyone on the 25th, but I hope to see all of you in Estes. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.